Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good morning to you from snowy and beautiful Toronto, Canada. That's where I'm joining from. And I also welcome everybody from everywhere, different places of the world joining in. So some of you, good afternoon and good evening. Before we start, I would like to, Kamran, I was not able to hear if you probably have told us about the two part of the session today in 90 minutes. First part is 45 minutes, where I'll be asking our practitioners and panelists about our topic today, and the next half, 45 minutes, we'll have a Q&A session. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Correct, please.
Okay, perfect. So what I will do is I'm going to start with brief introduction. I'm going to introduce myself first. We'll take about 1 minute each to introduce, and then I will request our panelists to introduce. So my name is Mehboob Kareem. I live in Canada. I've been here in Toronto for the last 30 years. I work as an asset management advisor, and I advise at Deloitte and many other industry. I have 30 years experience in asset management and reliability projects in oil and gas, mining, transportation sectors in US, Canada, and Australia, and of course in Pakistan. With this, I'm going to pass on to our panelist, Maha.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am Maha Bakar. I am a proud mother of a 10-year-old. I've done my MBA from IoBM back in 2007. And I have 11 plus years of experience, both in supply chain and finance. I've worked across different industries, which includes pharmaceutical and FMCG. I've also worked for multiple markets. Obviously, it's Pakistan, Afghanistan for sure, and then Middle East and Iran as well. So over to you, Mehboob. Thank you.
Thank you, Maha. We have Hasnul Haq Siddiqui. Sir, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Hasnul Haq Siddiqui. I've been working in a 3PL industry for the last nearly 3 decades. I run my own business, or own 3PL companies. I also involved in an academia side, along with the PIFA Training Institute. PIFA Training Institute works under the ambit of Pakistan International Freight Forwarders Association. And I'm a FIATA trainer, Federation of International Freight Forwarders Associations, based in Switzerland. FIATA have a consultative status with the UN regarding trade and transport things, whatever developments happens globally. So I've been involved in academia side since 2007. So that's all from my side.
Thank you. Thank you, Hasnullah. So as you know, this webinar has been hosted by Institute of Business Management in Karachi. So obviously we have our faculty member, Dr. Mahmood Ali, from he's head of Department of Institute. So go ahead, Dr. Saab.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Mahmood. I'm managing supply chain department at IoBM. It is one of the fastest growing department in IoBM, and I'm very excited to be part of IoBM, and this is part of series, and excited to be joining this webinar. I have my PhD from England, and before starting my PhD, I've worked for Citigroup and Bank of America and some major corporation in US, and then I switched to academia, and I love to be in academia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the whole idea of the institute at IoBM is to bring practitioners and academia together with these kind of webinars. This is where we learn. We learn in the institute, and then want to see what is going on outside in the world, and we bring that together. So we have launched a series of supply chain trends, which we think will be happening in 2021. This is the first series of the 5 series webinar. You'll be getting information on the other topics. Today's topic is omni-channel, which is the big thing which is happening. And because of COVID-19, there's a lot of progress has been made. The future topics which we'll be discussing will be, for example, Internet of Things in supply chain, big data analytics, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and other prescriptive analytics, which is right now is exploding everywhere. So stay tuned for that. As you know, the rise of supply chain, omni-channel supply chain is something which is happening in North America in exponential way. So this is what omni-channel solution is providing, is a one-touch integration across all channels. So we have traditional channels which we've been using, but due to COVID-19 and in response to customer demand, the businesses in North America and everywhere in the world is making a big strides towards offering a true omni-channel buying experience. So we are all experiencing, we cannot leave our home, especially in North America with lockdown. We cannot leave home, so we can go on a website and order something and it gets delivered at home. Or in future, what we expect that people will get used to ordering at home, but they also want to go out and pick it up. So the businesses have to evolve and start offering different ways to have this user experience through one channel. So there is no, discrepancies among what needs to be done. So this is a big thing which will be happening, and everything has been expedited. We were not expecting this to happen for another 5 years, but with the COVID-19, this has now just happened in the last 5 months. So things are exponentially growing, and things are moving really fast. And we feel that Pakistan needs to be, get on board with different ways of doing business in this new environment. So what I will do is I'll get into all the good questions and discussions we have for next 45, about 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So my first question will be to Mr. Hassan about in his world of logistics and freight industry, what are the current challenges are you having in moving goods quickly? Because as we understand, this has to be done very cost effectively and reliably across the borders, and it can affect the country's trade and economy. So please go ahead, Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mehboob Sahib. What I see the challenges locally in this part of the world is a capacity issue. Number one, due to COVID, the business volumes have after COVID suddenly have increased, and carriers are having capacity issues. They are overbooked with their current capacities. And secondly, pricing is also getting increased due to it's no more a traditional door-to-door transportation, port-to-port transportation. It's getting 3PLs or intermodal movements. So value-added costs are also increased in all areas. And secondly, in our part of the world, the visibility solution cost is also very high. That is why it is not very much used by the customers, you can say, in this part of the world. Although visibility solutions is vital for supply chain management. Secondly, we have very stringent service solutions. Flexibility is not easy even with our systems and the organization like customs. Flexibility is not available. Reliability is partially available with the big carriers or the big global supply chain companies. They are offering very much reliable services, but the mid-size and the local organizations, they are having difficulties in providing flexibility and reliability.
So Maha, to you is the question is how supply chain challenges in pharmaceuticals been handled? Because in North America with COVID-19, I think we already seeing a lot of issues in supply chain, especially related to delivery of vaccine. And so if that's happening over here, how can you give some of your views? How is getting handled in Pakistan and your experience globally?
Yeah, in terms of the challenges of delivery and all, obviously that's a challenging situation when it comes down to vaccines, because not all hospitals, even across the globe, in smaller areas, rural areas, you don't have that kind of facility available. The requirements that Pfizer and other, companies had for their vaccines for COVID-19 are very different from the regular vaccines that are there in the market. So definitely that's one. Other than that, pharmaceutical companies that, as a consumer, we feel that, it's all glory for them because, they are taking the center stage and, obviously they are seeing growth in a lot of medicines like, vaccines for flu, vaccines for pneumonia. All these medicines are seeing a spike. But despite all of that, there's a lot of disruption when it comes to the demands, because for certain, diseases, people are not really going to the hospitals. So, the demand is decreasing for some medicines. One is that. Then in terms of the raw material, there's been a lot of disruption there. As most of the companies are depending on the global sourcing and global network when it comes to the raw material and API, active pharmaceutical ingredients supply. So that's been a biggest challenge, I think, besides these challenges of delivery. The biggest challenge has been the raw material supply, especially in Pakistan and across the globe, because predominantly it's India and China that are supplying all those APIs to pharmaceuticals. And, there was a temporary ban from China, from India, because of COVID, and also because of, our relationship with India. So we have to now rethink the whole supply chain model. And we cannot just depend on globalization. We need to have an alternate regional kind of a supply chain hub that can supply us, and that's closer to home. So localization is again back on track. Yeah,
absolutely. So these are the challenges, and I'm glad that you and your industry is looking into this, because this is going to be very important moving forward. So my next question is on academia. Dr. Saab, so how Institute of Business Management, I know you have a very one of the fastest growing department in supply chain, and is getting very popular. So how are you keeping up with what you're teaching in classes with what is getting practiced? Because nobody knew that we'll be talking about COVID-19, and there are no courses on COVID-19, I'm sure. That just happened to be. So what are your challenges in coping with what actually happening with in the world?
Thank you for the question. The challenge that mainly we face in academia, especially being in Pakistan as a developing country, is the access to the knowledge. The information that we get and then we try to incorporate, and IT information is already old by that time. So but I believe that in order to limit this gap, I believe there should be two strong strategies. One is that you offer some courses that build the foundation and that build the awareness, like innovations, IT implementations in supply chain. And on the other side, that we need to offer like webinars such as this one, and also training session to the students, because that will bring industry professionals just like we have over here, to get them to know what is happening in the industry. In this scenario, the one challenge that comes in, that this COVID and the online education, student need to realize that the whole paradigm of that how we used to teach has changed. Now students need to come and comes towards information to gain further understanding. There was a time like the last year that we used to go to a student and we have interaction and we used to see them, and we were able to offer them more. But now with the COVID and this online medium, so students need to access and come to the information. So the main challenge is few challenges that I see is that the availability of information and access to information, and that we also need to realize that the whole paradigm is changing of the way the teaching is. And also we need to be more proactive in arranging this training and seminar and workshop like this for the students.
Absolutely, and this is very important, and that's why we have practitioners over here representing. And thank you for them to coming and giving this time. And especially we have our alumni Maha, who we hope to hear from you later about your experience in graduating from IoBM and how you feeling right now going to industry. How you felt that how this bridge, this gap was filled when you took when you went to the industry. So we'll talk about that a little later, but I'm going to come back to Hassan Saab about technology in supply chains. So as what's happening is a lot of new technologies and tools have come up in supply chain, and again, everything has been expedited. We were expecting this to happen in 2025, but now today we are having this because when I go out and talk to industry in North America to my client, and they're asking for these tools today, they don't want to wait anymore. So tell us, what kind of technology you've been experiencing or using right now in your logistic industry for supply chain.
Thank you, Mehboob. Technology, if I look at the local circumstances, then we miss a lot of things in terms of technology that is available. If we talk about tracking and tracing, that is available with the larger and better supply chain organizations or 3PLs. But the smaller companies are not investing in the technology locally because the technology cost is very high. So, for example, in Pakistan, we have like 700 registered freight forwarding companies in Pakistan. And out of these 700, maybe 200 or 250 companies have some, technology in part of inside of ICT, have invested in their businesses and providing some online visibility solutions. I'm not talking about how efficient these are, but they have put some money on it. But most of the organizations are still managing on traditional way in local market. Uh, the freight forwarding industry in Pakistan has been, I would say, stagnant since a couple of decades, and they have not invested much in the technology used in warehousing internationally or the distribution systems internationally. What we are having here in Pakistan is very much technology which is already absolute, means it's very old now, and the new investments are actually not coming. Secondly, by technology is a bit expensive exercise, and if you don't have any legal backing that your investment will be amortized in the future or in your businesses, people will not invest. So that is an area where local market actually is suffering a lot, and the intermodal or the multimodal or the logistics LSPs are not as such growing in the local market, but it is limited with only the larger organizations. Those have financial resources with them, which is hardly 10% of the overall market.
Absolutely. So just because of my experience over here and consulting with Deloitte and talking to a client, this what I think there's a myth that technology is expensive, because if you do really do your return on investment and proper ROI, you will see that you don't need to invest a lot of in infrastructure anymore, because, and this is our topic in future supply chain series, where we will see how technology and can be very effective, and not surprisingly, it will not cost that much, because now you have cloud-based system, you have other providers who will charge you as a service. So this, you know, there are different ways to address, and even small companies can do that. And that's one we will bring our. We have a whole college under information system technology. We'll bring our experts from there in the next series, and they can talk about that too. So you're right, it used to be very expensive, but now there are different ways to address that, and hopefully we'll be talking about in our series.
Just wanted to add one thing. It's not just an application maybe, or just a solution available on a cloud basis, but also the human capital currently serving the industry.
Yeah. So moving to Maha's, what are your views, Maha? Because in this omni-channel concept in supply chain, a lot of businesses are focusing into customer-centric model, where they see customer in the center and all the different multi-channel evolving around customer. So they give power to customer, whether they want to shop through their iPhone, they want to go through and pick up something from the store, or they want to order and pick up. So it's a kind of customer-centric model. So in pharmaceutical, do you see something like a patient-centric model, where instead of you sending medicine to pharmacy or to a distribution center first, and from there it goes to pharmacy, then pharmacy goes to customer? Do you see pharmaceuticals going directly to patients?
Yes, Mehboob, definitely this is actually happening right now. We do have different channels besides the brick and mortar model. Pharmaceuticals have started doing direct delivery of certain, medicines, and Sanofi is also doing for some medicines. They are delivering directly to the customer. There's a call center set up, and all you have to do is like call over there, send your prescription, and then they send it directly at your place. And and they are using different business partners to help them do this job. And not just pharmaceuticals, even the distribution companies have started doing that. Instead of sending the medicines just to the retailers and then wholesalers, they are delivering directly to the customers, like Muller and Phipps is one example. They've done a great job in the last 1 year. They've set up different call centers. They've come up with, mobile applications and different things to have this kind of use technology in the right way and to reach the customer at the right time. And I think during COVID, this is like the key thing. Even a place like Pakistan is getting more and more familiar with technology at all levels, whether it's personal or professional. We are all using technology a lot more than we used before. Everything we are getting it delivered at our place, and getting more comfortable about the concept of placing an order online, because previously people were not really comfortable putting their credit card details or even paying the customer at the doorstep. The idea was very uncomfortable for them. So it's a mindset shift. And in terms of technology, more than the cost, I would agree it's a mindset shift. If the mindset is there to bring in technology, use the technology for your benefit, then you have a lot of startup companies who are willing to give you what you need at a very low cost. So things are available. I think it's more about the mindset than the cost.
So what you're saying, that if a patient, like if I want to order my Lipitor, I have to do it through my pharmacy. I have to pay them. There's a fee they charge, and I'm sure there's a lot of cost of that medicine actually coming to that pharmacy before it comes to me. So all that cost, I don't know what % of that cost is in supply chain, which could be saved by pharmaceuticals, and that will be passed on to customer.
Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, but definitely you do get certain discounts. At the moment, pharmaceuticals and companies are doing that. They are giving a certain amount of discount and passing that discount, the savings basically that they're making, they are passing some of it or all of it, depending on their strategy. They are doing that. Definitely, it's a win-win situation for both, for customers and the company.
Because that's very interesting. So one of the omni-channel benefit with customer gets, and that's why it's a user experience in here, that I can shop. Now we're talking about medicine, so I can actually look at who's offering the best price and who's offering a good discount. And so if I have it on mobiles, I'll just directly order from them, which I get the best. So that gives power to user, and that's what we are looking with this disruption coming in, that the old way of doing things will be totally different. So
exactly.
Coming to you, Dr. Mahmood, there was one thing which Mr. Hassan mentioned is how we can do capacity building, because that's one of the gap out there in the industry, where definitely the capacity needs to be built before we make our workforce more productive. So can you give a light on how the IoBM is addressing that?
As I said before, we can do the capacity building by, providing our student and what we are trying to do into gain them a diverse experience during their stay in their bachelor's supply chain or master's level supply chain program. We shouldn't be only restricted to the courseworks or case study inside the coursebook, but how we can enhance their understanding of the field, enhance the understanding of the industry, and also get them to know what is happening across outside the country as well. Good, as I said before, in case of capacity building, these kinds of webinars and seminars are good source. We used to, when there was no COVID, and we are having field visits as well to be student to know, understand what is happening out there in the industry. Guest speakers are also a good source. Also, what I believe is that we need to continue to revise our curriculum that we are offering, and continue to see what is happening in the market, and then bring in those courses and areas inside our curriculum. It could be a tedious process, and it's in academia it could be very bureaucratic, because the level of approvals that you have to get. So to bypass that, you can have the process in a place, but to bypass that, what we could do is bring in case studies, or bring in experts from the area, and also give your faculties some leeway that they can offer. They are following the course requirement, but they can incorporate the trends that are taking place in the industry as well.
Absolutely, and just to add to that, we do have a Entrepreneur Management Excellence Center, EMEC, which has been functioning from day one, which conduct these kind of workshops, and also bring practitioners to conduct those workshops, and even our alumni. So that's the other way, IoBM is building capacity in the industry. I just want to add it, because of COVID-19, now these workshops cannot be held face to face, but now we are holding these workshops remotely, and so we'll continue doing that. So definitely, institute and other Pakistani institutes are playing a major role in building capacity, but as it was mentioned, much more is needed, and I think we need to build this gap.
With your permission, Mahmood Sahab, I just would like to add a couple of lines for what Mahmood Sahab has just said. In our academia side, what we have been teaching is a lot about the concepts and what the market trends are. If we add a little bit on the competency side as well, that will also add value to the participant, because when they go to the market, they may have concepts, but when they are still on the system, they don't have the competencies to actually utilize the system. So the competency enhancement is also very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, point well taken. Absolutely. So, as I'm just on the same question on logistic, I just want to address the cold supply chain challenges because there's definitely you must be having in logistics and definitely in pharmaceutical, which I'll have the similar question for Ms. Maha later on. But let's talk about core supply chain challenges. What are you facing in transporting things which has to be kept at certain temperature, and how successfully you've been doing that in Pakistan?
Cold chain is a very challenging task, because when you have to move temperature sensitive commodities, you have options like, for example, a truck going from Karachi to Lahore. That means we are talking about one container loaded on it, and that container is maintaining a certain temperature. Now you have to have all the commodities, or the entire volume filled with that have a certain temperature requirements. So that volume is not very much available within the transport chains. So they have to sometimes move. In fact, most of the time they have to move uh, uh, partial loads in a full unit load, which at the end becomes expensive. Secondly, this cold chain options are available within the major cities, but the rural areas are not connected. I mean, when we have to transport medicines to remote areas, we either have to use like smaller packages filled with maybe dry ice or maybe some other uh, 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 means to keep the temperature maintained as required. Otherwise, cold chain is available, very much available within the city areas, within the major metropolitan city areas. But the rural is an issue. It needs a lot to be work on at the moment. So it is there, but not very, not very not at large scale.
Absolutely, and I can see with all the power issues and it got to be a lot of challenges, especially in villages. I don't even know when it gets delivered. Does it get used immediately, or does has to be kept also in storage? So, Maha, your views on how this being handled and what are the challenges you're experiencing?
Sure. Before I, give my views, I just want to give this a little disclaimer that the views that I'm sharing over the webinar are totally my own personal views, and
Absolutely.
have nothing to do with the company.
Yeah.
In terms of cold chain, we do have a lot of challenges, honestly. One is of maintaining the temperature. In Pakistan, another big challenge is theft. So, so whether it's cold chain or not cold chain, and cold chain is much more prone to theft because they are much more expensive items. So that's something which the whole industry is suffering and facing for many years. And there are days and years where it gets better, then again it goes back to the same cycle. So that's another challenge. So temperature, yes, but I feel there are a lot of companies who have these kind of facilities. So when you're transporting, it's fine. But when it's going to the retailer end, that's the issue. Even the distribution companies have really, scaled up and, basically trying to meet the requirements of the pharmaceutical companies, because we have a lot of distributors, at Sanofi, and they all have temperature controlled, warehouses. And even when the medicine is going from their warehouse to the retailers, it goes in a temperature controlled vehicle, which was never the case before, in the industry. It's still, a lot of companies don't follow that. But the facilities are pretty much there. But after it reaches the retailer, and from the retailer to the consumer, that's the tricky area. Even in big cities, you cannot be sure. So it's not just the rural areas, even big cities, because of the electricity issues and the cost of electricity, people do end up, not refrigerating at a certain level, and not all the time. So
Absolutely.
that challenge is definitely there, and the efficacy of the medicine goes away if even for a few hours the medicine is not under that temperature. So that's yeah, that is
Absolutely.
definitely
I didn't even think about this theft issues. Didn't even come to my mind because
exactly.
we don't experience over here. So, but that's very interesting locally, and I'm sure you have ways to address that. So we are just ending our first half of the session, and it was very productive. Thanks for your answer. Before we break for namaz and for 5 minutes, Maha, you have a very unique uh, biodata for us because you're an ex IoBM graduate, and now, mashallah, you're very successful in your career. And I know there are a lot of IoBM students right now also connected, and I'm sure they would like to hear from you just your personal experience at IoBM and then in your career and where you are today.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank IoBM for giving this opportunity to me to contribute, and coming back to the place that actually gave me the wings to fly. So I'm really honored, and thanks a lot to IoBM and the whole team. And yes, I had a great time at IoBM, and honestly, as a student and as somebody who spent more than 10 years in the industry, one thing I really want to say, that whatever time you have at the university and even afterwards, whatever you're doing, be in the present moment, because what normally happens as students, we are always looking forward, oh, we really want to work, and we are really, we aspire to be at a certain position, and we are always dreaming big. That's good. Continue doing that. But at the same time, what you're doing right now, you're going to miss that. So make the most of it, learn the most, make most connections, and, enjoy your time, because it's never going to come back again. So, and I think IoBM is a great institute, and even in the industry, we've made our name, and that's a great thing, that, you're graduating from a institute like IoBM that gives you a lot of opportunity to learn. And since you just mentioned, there's a lot of focus on startups and entrepreneurship and developing the skills. It's amazing. Back in our time, obviously, we didn't have that many tools that people have right now. You have LinkedIn to connect with people in the industry. So do all of that, make connections, try and learn from them, seek support. If any of you want to reach out to me, feel free to do that. I whatever little I can do to advise or guide or help you, I would do that. And reach out to people. People are pretty welcoming. We normally think that, if you reach out to them, they might not respond, but try your luck. There's no harm. If you reach out to 10 people or 20, one will definitely respond. And that one person might change your life in some way or the other. So just keep your mind open, but enjoy life every single moment while you're working, while you're studying, at every single moment. Because, especially after COVID, a lot of people have realized we cannot take things for granted. And, we should take each day as it comes and enjoy it and make the most of it. So that's it from my side. Yeah.
No, thank you very much. Very good advice. And thank you for offering. So students, please reach out to Maha if she's part of our community, and she's out there to help each of you if you are looking for any advice, any career, discussion, and what to do. Do reach out, and thank you, Ma, for that offer. So with this, we're going to end this part of our session. Let's take 5 minutes, and we'll come back, and then we will take questions. We already have collected a lot of questions from different people, and we will be answering that in our next session. So let's take a 5 minutes break, and then we'll come back. I'll put myself in mute and maybe off audio, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
All the panelists are requested to resume. We are resuming the session to come online, please. Mehboob Saab, we have a couple of questions with us.
Sure, let's address them. I saw one message, which is direct. It's a very good question. I think Maha is directed to you from Saad Ali Khan to kindly give guidance to students of supply chain like him, how they can make their career bright in future. So, and also I think there was a similar question about your journey to reach this position.
Okay, sure. So I honestly believe there are like three things for me when it comes to success or, uh, winning the race, basically. It's one is the attitude. That's key. If you have the right attitude, you have the right set of skills. And skills is not something which, which you learn at the university and, for the next 20, 30 years, you continue keeping those only. You need to continuously build on those skills, learn new skills, unlearn and relearn something. So that's something which you need to keep tap on the trends, on what's where the industry is going, what you need to do to keep upgrading yourself. So right attitude, right skills, and having the confidence in your own abilities. Because if you're not going to think that I'm capable enough to do something in life, nobody else is going to see you there. So these are the three key things for any area, I think, not just supply chain, and for your personal and professional life. We need to have these things there. If that's there, then anything is possible. My journey has been interesting. I immediately started my career with GSK, and I had interned there, and then there was an opportunity, and I was lucky. So I didn't really struggle in the beginning, and it was very easy to start my career. That too with a good company. I started in finance, and because I did my MBA in finance, and back then I had no clue about supply chain. So in the second year of my career, I got the opportunity to work for Iran market, and that too looking after supply chain and finance both of that. I was that one single person looking after both. So this role basically gave me the opportunity to learn about supply chain, to understand that I am more interested and more inclined towards supply chain compared to finance, which I back then thought that that's the only area I want to work in. So gradually along the way, I made a conscious effort to start moving into roles that are supply chain related, the planning roles, demand planning, and all of that. Did that with GSK for 7.5 years, worked with different markets there. I took 2 career breaks, by the way. So, it's not always that simple. And that too because of personal reasons. But then getting back was very, very difficult because, once you're out of the corporate world, nobody wants to accept you. So that was a struggle. So later, because initially I never faced that struggle of finding a job and all of that. But when I took those breaks, then I did struggle, but I was still lucky enough to land a good job and at the right position in good companies. Worked for Reckitt for around 2.5 years. Reckitt is it's a very known company as well that makes Dettol, and in COVID times, every single person is using products made by them. After that, I started working for Sanofi. So I've been with Sanofi for the last 2 years, and it's been a great journey, honestly. I have no regrets or no complaints.
Absolutely. No, thank you. That's very, promising for the students to look forward to what they want to do. A couple of things. I know luck plays important, but also hard work. So I'm sure you worked hard and gone through different ups and downs. So that's very important takeaway. The interesting thing is that you were not focusing for supply chain, but you ended up there, and that's a good thing about being a BBA or an MBA, because you get exposure to so many other different fields in the program. And you don't have to be, if you're taking marketing, you don't have to be in a marketing field eventually. You could be in some other field. Or if you're in supply chain, you may end up in asset management or doing other things. So that's a good thing about the program. And the other thing, Maha, I think really helps you. You talked about internships. So I think it's very important that we, as a student, should all go through internships. It's very, very helpful. So those are very important points.
May I add something over here, just to continue about what you said about internship to our students that are listening. Part of being your beside your courses, when you come across your bachelor's or MBA program or the capstone, you need to take that as very seriously, because that is IoBM is trying to open its window for you to look outside and make your own connection and see what is happening. And through that window or through that door, you need to make your own walkway. So if you take that capstone 1 and capstone 2 seriously and put your best of effort into it and impress not us, but also the company that you're working with, that can open a very huge road for you, inroads into the industry.
Absolutely. Any question, Kamran?
Yes, we have a question here from Saad Ali Khan. I have been working in procurement for 6 years and I see there is a low rate of getting promotion in it. Is this true?
I think it's a good question for Azan Saab. So because you have been in the industry and actively also training people.
I would ask Saad a question in return, that in 6 years, how many new competencies and skills you have developed? And if you haven't worked on new skills and new competencies, and you are keep doing the similar task for the last 6 years, you are wrongly expecting promotions. So if you have been working hard to develop new competencies, new skills, getting new courses, new learnings, then you should be able to get promotions. So ask yourself, have you been able to develop new skills in the last 6 years? Have you developed new competencies? If you haven't, then the management will not be interested to promote you. Maybe you are doing some task which is very repetitive and sort of a crunching task. So
Absolutely, I'll echo those comments because I'm very close to retiring, and I want to retire very soon. I've been working for 30 plus years, but believe me, people, I still go and educate myself. It's absolutely, I agree with the SSR. You don't want to be left behind. Just getting a degree doesn't mean that for next part of your life you got a document and that will take you further. That's not true. There are people who are learning on daily basis and they are getting jobs with no degrees because they have skills. And I'm not saying these are and there's nothing wrong to be a plumber or electrician, but these skills are technology skills. So if you can have something extra, if you're a supply chain, if you have a degree, and there's a certification program which has been offered in blockchain, I will go ahead and take that program. I will educate myself in blockchain. I will educate myself in artificial intelligence. I will try to learn about machine learning, because these are the things which are coming up. They come and they may not be taught in colleges or universities because these are very fast moving programs, and these ideas are coming now. So you need to go back and educate and get those skills. So absolutely, I agree. And then if you're not promoted, there's something wrong with your management, and then you should be looking for something else, because these are the things which are needed. And if you have that, definitely you'll be promoted.
If I may add, I've noticed that in Pakistan, I noticed the mindset in the student that when they go out in the final years or if they're working, they like to play very, very safe, and that's what I tell my students. Listen, this is your age, you in 20s or mid or late 20s to experiment, to find out what you like. Even in case of supply chain, there are different areas. You need to go and figure out what you like. You need to challenge yourself. You need to experiment yourself. And, you need to push yourself. I'm not asking you to jump into obvious, jump in front of a truck or something, but you need to experiment to find out, and do not hesitate to learn and push yourself to the limit. That's what I tell to my students.
Good. No, good advice. Yeah. Any other?
There are a couple of questions. I think I should ask questions related to Ehsan Siddiqui Sahib. First one is, how challenging is supply chain in our economy? The second question have been asked by Anas Khan is, Mr. Ehsan, I have been part of customs freight forwarding and wish to leverage my career to supply chain management without prior experience into supply chain, but don't wish to start from zero. How to cope up with that? So here are two questions. And then there is a question, last question. I've done a course in supply chain from PIFA. I've learned many new things from Sir Ehsan. I want to say thanks to him.
Let's go one by one. Let's go one by one. There was a question on blockchain. In the blockchain in supply chain. So I would like to address that first before we get to those questions, Kamran. So anybody who want to take blockchain, Maha, do you have any experience in blockchain or within supply chain?
No, honestly, that's an area that I'm not an expert in, but definitely I would like to learn more about it, like
Absolutely.
you mentioned. And
Absolutely. Anybody else? Because I can take a stab at it. Anybody else wants to give their opinion?
No, please proceed. Please proceed, Mehboob sir.
So the blockchain is, so by the way, I just want to remove this myth that blockchain is cryptocurrency. It came out of there, but it's not about going in crypto. So when you talk about blockchain, it's basically, it's a ledger, and it is something which cannot be changed, whatever you do. So it's very transparent, and it cannot be, as you say, cannot be hacked. And the blockchain is very, very important in supply chain. And we're going to have a webinar on this topic in one of the series about the use of blockchain. So my answer to this question, which I happened to see while I was looking at the chat, it's a very, very important question. And in future, blockchain is going to play a very important role in supply chain. Let me give you an example. Right now, we have to go through a bank even to open an LC. And then that paperwork has to go through different steps. And before you start shipping your goods, you have to go through different stages, and that costs time and a lot of money. Blockchain is going to remove all that in between processes, and you will be able to deliver everything in a day. So once you decide something needs to be delivered, all the banking procedure, we're opening a letter of credit and getting approval, going to the bank, getting some, depositing your money, and going through all this process before you ship your goods, is all will be eliminated, because blockchain will be a ledger by itself. And details will be talking, and we'll bring some expert. I'm not an expert. I'm just saying that because I've seen this, I've learned about it. So I just giving my opinion, but definitely blockchain which is coming in very fast. In some of the companies over here in supply chain has already been implemented in North America, and it will be coming to Pakistan also. So very interesting topic. Let's go back to the question which was directed to Mr. Ehsan. Kamran, can you one question? I think you said 3 questions. Let's go step by step.
There was one question, and Mr. Ehsan already replied to a question by typing. There is another question from Ali Murtaza for Ms. Maha. Don't you think that in a sector like pharmaceutical, omni-channel has a limited scope, keeping in mind the sort of dependence pharmaceutical companies have on distributors?
Good question. I think that's very relevant. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're right. To a certain extent, obviously, it's not easy that, moving it to another channels. But the whole idea of omni supply chain is basically not to have one specific channel, to have multiple channels that are integrated and that are able to support the customer. They can either go to the shop, purchase something. If they want to return it, they can return it online. So, it's basically having that integrated system. So we are way behind right now. Obviously, we are nowhere close to where we should be. But having said that, it is possible. Obviously, it's not going to be as easy. It's easier for FMCGs because they don't have regulations. They don't have to get prescriptions and all of that if they are supplying to a customer. For pharmaceuticals, this is another thing. They have to keep the regulations in mind when they are connecting all the supply chain channels. So that's one thing. Yeah. And obviously, we are very much dependent on distributors compared to FMCGs. Yes. So it's going to take a couple of years for us to be there. True.
But it will be disruptive, and we should not take disruption as a negative. Disruption is positive thing. Just like we have taxis converting into Uber or whatever they have, I think Careem or whatever in Pakistan. So disruption is coming, and it will be coming in every field. Kamran, is any other question which you want to? Do you have? Okay, he went offline. So I see one question which is talks about, please share some quick example how supply chain creates value. Dr. Mahmood Ali, can you address this from your perspective?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So see, the basic purpose or basic reason for the rise of supply chain was to create a value for the product. If you go back, like let's suppose you go back to 70s and 80s, and when Walmart, the biggest retailer of that time, they began to realize that the buying from the buyer and putting on their shelf inside the store and selling them and making certain small profit. How about if they go back and study and they align their whole supply chain right from the start, so they can keep an eye on the cost factor from the raw material, how it is manufactured, how it is moved from one point A to point B, how it comes to their store, and how it is sold, keeping in view the customer's need, and share all this information and save money wherever you could, enhance the product value wherever you can, save time in moving the product. So as the product is moving, you are creating more and more value. So if you can think of, if you have might have seen the Stevenson book, they give a very good, brief, simple picture of bread, that how the bread is moving from the wheat farm and how the value is being generated. So this is what supply chain does. Following the Walmart organization begin to realize this is, if we can have an efficient supply chain, that supply chain that is producing what is needed, what customer wants in whatever way or form they want, if we can produce it and get to the customer from point A to in the hands of customer in shortest possible time, in the price that is affordable to the customer, that is how it creates value. So this is it's just not one function in supply chain that creates value, right from managing your raw material from where your supplier buys all the way in the hands of customer. If you can, just repeat again, if you can minimize the time, if you minimize the logistic cost, if you're producing quality product, you're producing good design, if you're getting in the hand of customer in right time when they need it, it all creates the value. It's a huge area in itself. Nowadays, Walmart used to be a champion of supply chain, but now Apple has taken over. So now Apple is said to have very efficient supply chain, and as you can see, the product is designed in Silicon Valley, manufactured in somewhere in China, then goes to distributor center somewhere in the middle, and then spread out across the world. So this is how it creates value.
Yes, and absolutely, I agree with that, and that's why supply chain is now also called value chain, because that's the concept which is coming in. It's not only about supplies anymore. It's all about the source and at the end product what the customer gets. So the whole value chain from end to end is that what we are calling. And Walmart is a good use case. Then we have Starbucks as a good case. We have Costco, because these are the people who are creating value in a sense. Okay. Any other questions we want to take at this point, Kamran?
We have questions from students. I think let me try to combine this into one question because everything is related. There is a question from Javeri Ashraf. Can a computer science graduate work in supply chain? And what are the skills or qualities that companies look for in fresh graduates? And last question is from anonymous attendee. Supply chain itself is a dynamic field with many specializations to proceed with.
Let's
and many practitioners.
Let's take one question, answer it, and then we go to that.
Sure.
We have about 10-15 minutes left. I want to close it on time.
So there is one question from computer science graduate and another, what companies look for skill set from fresh graduates?
Maha, maybe you can take that because you're directly hiring probably supply chain people.
So interestingly, in supply chain, because now the trend is that people are doing, MBAs and they're graduating in supply chain. Previously, we didn't have a degree or a certification or commonly available to us. So mostly people from, people who were engineers or computer science students, they were coming to supply chain. So back in Reckitt, I had a team which was like all from GIK. I was the only MBA there. So we don't have too many MBAs. We have mostly people who have engineering background or computer science background coming to supply chain. If you look at people who've been in the industry for the last 10, 15 years. So I think definitely a computer science student can definitely join supply chain.
May I add to Maha's comment? When we come across a new student, that's what I tell to my student, that supply chain is such a diverse field and we perform so much diverse activities and processes that you will just you'll find a place in supply chain that you like. If you are good in numbers, you can go to inventory control. If you are good in planner, go to planning. If you're good in operations, go to operations side, procurement. And the same goes for computer graduate. And this is what this seminar is about, that how the whole supply chain idea is changing towards, with information technologies. So it's the future is supply chain and computers,
That's true. There's a lot of focus everywhere on supply chain. Previously, it was marketing and sales that were having all the attention and the focus of the company. And now supply chain is taking the lead there.
Absolutely. There was another question. I think let's take the last question and then we will like to close. If there's any more, maybe last two questions and then we are...
There is only one question left. This is from an anonymous attendee. Supply chain itself is a dynamic field with many specializations to proceed with, and many practitioners in the field have somehow background of engineering. My question is, as we are proceeding with more education of supply chain, what generalized skills should we possess to work in global market? Particularly skill set for undergrad supply chain students.
Okay, so maybe Hassan, you can answer that.
So they have outsourced their entire production side to say like China. Now, what is their core competency? Their core competency is their finance, their design, their technology, and their marketing. The rest they have outsourced. So in supply chain, you have to find out what the specific organization, which is the focal organization, that focal company that is running, that is maintaining the supply chain, what is their core competency? Similarly, if you take example of Nike. Now, Nike is a global brand of, say, like sports shoes, for example. Manufacturing of shoes is not their core competency. Their brand, their marketing, their finance is their core competency. So they are finding out the core competency and then establish the extent of supply chain where you want to manage it is actually supply chain management, in which you have various areas. You can have specialization in procurement, you can have specialization in inventory, you can have specialization in marketing and finance. And another topic that we normally do not cover in general is the specialization on the modulation of supply chains. Their focal companies always need consultants or experts in an organization. Those have to design the entire supply chain so that the procurement and the production and the marketing and finance can run. So making that supply chain model is vital for the focal company. So specialization in any of the area, one can we choose from a people having engineering background can go into production and operations. Finance can also be part of the supply chain. So is marketing, but person who is having there was an old saying, master of one and jacks of all. In 21st century, that is gone. The master of all and jacks of none is the criteria. So the one who is having expertise on all the areas, he will go into modulation of the supply chains. So depending on the individual's attitude and his skills, he can choose he want to go into a specialized field or into a supply chain broader supply chain topic.
Absolutely. So those days are going away where there was a hardcore engineering and you're only supposed to do engineering. Today we have engineers who are becoming doctors. So things will be changing even in future, where your skill, whichever you feel is where your strength is, and that will be needed. So with that, I would like to thank all our panelists to giving this time to us and their valuable feedback about their experience and what's going outside. It's a very productive session we had today. As I said, we will be having future webinars on different topics, so stay tuned. We'll send you the topics and date and time and hope to see you again. So Kamran, with that, I would like to hand it over to you to close this webinar.
Thank you so much, everyone, the audience, the panelists, and moderator, Mr. Mehboob Karim, for joining us today. We hope this learning series we started today continue its journey, and we hope to contribute in learning and development for all of you, the corporate, the students, faculty. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kamran.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.